Hi everyone. Today we're sharing the exciting plot of this novel. Jacob discovers he has an unusual superhuman healing ability in the werewolf world. Yet his werewolf lover Hunter and his werewolf family can't explain it. But what's even more unexpected is that Jacob's family has a strange and conflicting attitude toward his werewolf partner Hunter. What secrets are they hiding? Chapter 33. I worry about Jacob's safety. Having to trek through the woods for nearly 2 hours to reach our home, Margot said, her compassionate nature evident in her voice. She watched as Hunter, in his white wolf form, frolicked playfully in the field with Jacob. The human's athletic prowess was on full display as he hurled a massive stick across the expanse, showcasing his strength. Anthony, his arms crossed, nodded in agreement. I share your I doubt Jacob's parents would allow him to stay over. They seem like the type to enforce strict rules. Margot shook her head, her spiritual beliefs coloring her perspective. Humans can be so peculiar about these matters. Don't they understand that love nourishes the soul? What's the harm in young people expressing their affection? We must remember that werewolf societies differ greatly from human ones. Anthony replied, his skepticism evident. Though we needn't worry about Hunter impregnating his mate. Margot raised an eyebrow at her husband. You're aware Jacob is male? Correct. Of course. Anthony affirmed. But surely you've heard the legend. Indeed. Margot said, wrapping an arm around Anthony's waist. Our gods once blessed same-sex couples with the ability to conceive. Even 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬, the god of wisdom, was mated to another female. Anthony's non-religious stance was clear as he responded. Margot, you know I don't believe in the gods. Perhaps you should, she sighed. A disbelief is why we have homophobic wolves. They reject the gods because the deities accepted same-sex pairings. I don't believe, yet am not homophobic, Anthony countered, watching Jacob's impressive throw. Even if the gods did exist, they vanished centuries ago. But I understand how it brings hope to believers like you. Margot gazed into Anthony's striking gray eyes. My gift must have originated somewhere. I may not be a god, but I possess a fragment of their power. I believe their souls are dispersed among the wolves, with some being more extraordinary than others. Anthony loved listening to his wife's theories, and she did have a point. Nobody knew where her gift came from. Well, Hunter's gift is to give off the biggest sex appeal for his poor mate. Did you see Jacob earlier? He didn't know where to look just because Hunter didn't have his T-shirt on. Bless him, Margot chuckled. He may be innocent, but Hunter is gentle. Being with Jacob is teaching him to slow down and consider feelings other than his own. He'll never rush with his mate, and it's sweet. He's developing the love before the serious stuff. Jacob watched as Hunter sprinted back towards him with the stick in his mouth. His tail was wagging with excitement. Throw it again. He didn't know why it was so appealing to chase something, especially from his mate. Hunter, Jacob questioned and picked up the stick. You know how dogs have masters and stuff who they obey. Am I your master? He had a faint smirk on his lips, but he was also genuinely interested. The white wolf stopped panting and tilted his head to the side. He could feel a few drops of rain on his fur. You're not my master, but if I told you to do something, would you do it? Jacob questioned. Well, yes, but because I'm your master. Jacob was still quiet, but a little cheeky. Hunter's wolf form stared into his deep chocolate eyes before changing back. Hunter stood up when the rain began to fall a little heavier. He was sweaty from running around the field all afternoon. He walked over to his mate and stood very close. You may be my master in my wolf form, but I'm yours in my human one. His voice was soft and leaked seduction. Jacob studied his face. There was something about the tone of his voice which made him melt, and there was something about his words which spoke the truth. Just before they could do or say anything, the heavens opened and the rain poured from the sky. Jacob gasped and turned to run, but Hunter grabbed him and pulled him close once more. How romantic. We're kissing in the rain. He smiled. Jacob frowned. But we're not kiss. Hunter leaned forwards and silenced him by connecting their lips. Jacob's whole body tingled with emotions and excitement. He was so close and they were sharing something so personal. Before meeting him, the thought of kissing someone filled him with nerves. He knew he wouldn't be good at it. However, he has learned that it doesn't matter. People gain knowledge through experience, which brought him to the questions of what Hunter got up to before meeting him. He seemed pretty experienced. Hunter's arms wrapped around the T-shirt that was quickly clinging to Jacob's body. Their lips moved slowly together while the rain continued to fall hard. Hunter was pleased. Jacob was following his lead and kissing him. They felt very special to him and he cherished every single one. "Boys." They then heard Margot shout from the porch. Jacob pulled back, but only by a centimeter. He wanted to continue. "Come back inside before you get ill." Hunter rolled his eyes but kissed his mate's lips once more. "I'm glad you're getting used to these," he whispered. "Me too." Jacob opened his eyes to see water running down Hunter's olive skin. It was at that exact moment when he saw a shimmer of vulnerability on his face. He didn't look confident in himself, assured like he usually does. He looked unguarded and free. Jacob lifted his hand and placed it gently on his cheek. Hunter opened his eyes in surprise when he felt his thumb run gently along his strong jawline. "I know I have trouble expressing myself," he said quietly, "but you can't be the strong one all the time." Hunter enjoyed showing his raw emotions in front of his mate, who was very good at detecting them. "I know," he whispered and lifted a hand to move some wet hair out of his eyes. "I never thought you would make me feel this way. I would literally do anything for you and I don't even mind. I never thought I'd get to express my feelings like this. When it really comes down to it, Hunter is a big softie. This, connection thing is a learning curve for us both, I think," Jacob whispered when Hunter's face grew closer. "It certainly is." He stole one more kiss in the pouring rain. Jacob wrapped an arm around his shoulders, feeling safe and completely relaxed. Hunter loved how he was finding his confidence and he understood the side of him was his true self. He cowed and waited for him to express it more. "Boys," Margot shouted again. "Get inside." "Is that your hoodie?" Sam raised asked Jacob. It was 8:30 in the evening and he had been home for only 10 minutes. They understood that he spent the rest of the day with Hunter and they were fine with that. No," he said quietly and fiddled with the sleeves. "It's Hunter's. We got caught in the rain earlier." It fit him well because they were similar sizes, and so he lent you his clothes. "That's sweet," she beamed. "Would you like me to wash it for you?" "No," Jacob said quickly. It's fine." He liked how it smelt of him. "All right. He'll wash it when you decided to give it back." She chuckled. "That's if he ever decides to give it back. My last girlfriend stole like 3 of my hoodies. She said she liked how it reminded her of me or some rubbish like that." Scott shook his head with a grin. "You're not much of a romantic, are you, son?" "Not really." William shrugged. Scott then turned to his other son. But Jacob, on the other hand, he grinned. "You seem to be the type of romantic who would sleep in that." Jacob smiled and nodded. "It smells like him." William rested a hand on his heart and flopped back onto the couch. "Girls love it when guys are like that. It's a shame you're gay, Jacob, because they'd be throwing themselves at you." Jacob stared at him with blank eyes. "Guys like it too," he mumbled. He secretly enjoyed Hunter's flirty nature. He liked how he was getting used to thinking about a relationship with a little less innocence. He had to. It's the only way for him to be comfortable enough to take it further. You liked it?" Hunter's voice was vibrant in his mind. "And there's plenty more to get used to." "I'm curious," William said and sat forward. "What's Hunter like in a relationship? Is he romantic?" Jacob nodded. "In what way?" Grace said and narrowed her eyes. "He likes hugs and stuff," Jacob mumbled. "And stuff." Grace crossed her arms. "Are you talking about lovemaking?" Jacob's cheeks blazed bright red. William wind. "Who even calls it that?" "I do." "Now answer me, son. Is that what you're talking about?" "No," Jacob frowned. "I meant, he prefers physical contact, like holding hands." sitting close and dumb. A kiss or something. Grace. Chill out. Scott chuckled. So what if that's what he was talking about? HS 17. Let him have some fun. Scott understood that when his son is ready, he'll take their relationship further. What he has seen from Hunter proves that he is not rushing in and allowing him to take his time. Sorry. She smiled and ruffled Jacob's hair. You know what I'm like. I need to know everything. Unfortunately, William muttered hey. For that comment, you need to tell me everything about your relationship with Alisha. Grace stood up and sat next to him instead. Jacob then zoned out. He did not want to listen to that. It has been a week since I confessed my love to you. Hunter whispered with a big grin. Jacob looked up from the notes he was writing. They were sitting next to each other in the lecture hall, trying to focus on what the tutor was talking about. Already, Jacob whispered back. Hunter nodded. He had taken no notes because he would just look at Sam's later, who was sitting on the other side of his mate. Yet they couldn't believe how developed they felt instead of their feelings. 7 days is certainly not a long time, and they definitely felt like they've known each other for a lot longer. But that is all down to their bond. It gives them no other choice but to be close, mentally and physically. How about a celebratory kiss? Hunter thought in his head. Jacob sat up straight and glanced at him until his eyes widened. Now he thought back. Hunter nodded and put his arm on the back of the chair so it was behind Jacob. If you're ready, that is. Hunter knew Jacob wasn't ready for the whispers and the judgment. But he'll get to a point in his life where it doesn't matter and he can be himself without worrying what people think. Jacob thought about it, and what has he got to lose? Nothing. It's not like he has any friends other than his brother, Hunter and his pack. I want to kiss you. His cheeks flushed at the thought. Hunter couldn't wait to show off his mate and rightfully mark him as his in front of everyone. It was a territorial characteristic that werewolves possess. He leaned forwards and effortlessly planted a sweet kiss on his lips. They were sitting near the front and heard a few gasps shared among the student. Jacob felt like all eyes were on him, but for once, he didn't mind because he could feel Hunter's pride and it filled him with a little more self-love. Hunter pulled back with a hint of passion in his eyes. That was a big step for Jacob and he was proud of him. Feeling okay? Hunter smiled yes. Jacob looked a little tense as they turned back to face the tutor. People were whispering, but they couldn't hear what it was about. Although, which 90% was about the kiss they just witnessed. Let them talk. Hunter thought and put an arm around his shoulders instead of the chair. He checked the time and they only had 15 minutes left. I can't wait to be outside. Just then, he and Sam received a forced mind link from a pack member. Alpha, the Jonah spoke with urgency in his tone. It's the rival pack. They're outside your home. Chapter 30 for stay calm. Hunter thought to everyone, including Jacob. Where are my parents? Jonah. At a meeting. Jonah's voice was still panicked. The rest of us are here. What are your orders? Hunter made eye contact with Sam. Jacob was sitting and fidgeting. He didn't really understand the roles of Hunter's pack and what they do, but he did know that they are very strong together and work well as a team. Hunter is a great leader. What is the rival pack doing? Are all the members there? Not all of them, Harris added, and they're just sitting on your step. I think they're waiting for you. Watch your back, boys. The rest could be hunting you. Hunter clenched his jaw with thought. Go and confront them together. You'll be there as soon as possible. He couldn't just get up and leave class early. There was now only 5 minutes left, and it felt like the longest minutes of his life. Jacob subtly packed his things away. He couldn't take any more notes with this going on in his head. When the lecturer announced that the lesson was finished, they stood up quickly. Hunter took Jacob's hand so he didn't lose him as he pushed through people. Jacob was too polite to do that, but Hunter didn't care and nobody dared to question him about it. They were all too shocked at seeing them kiss. Sam followed. He was a little nervous but ready to back his alpha and put the rival pack in their place. He hated that they were so cocky. They made a small mistake by adventuring into their territory and all hell broke loose. Hunter apologized, but apparently, that wasn't good enough. Hunter's hand stayed tightly locked with Jacob's while they quickly walked down the corridor. People were staring and whispering as Jacob kept his gaze in front of him. He had other things to worry about. When they were stood outside, Hunter turned to his mate. "Go home, Jacob. I can't take you with me. It's too dangerous." Jacob was ready to leave him. "But please don't argue with me." Hunter rested his hands on his shoulders. "He'll come straight to yours when this is sorted." "Okay." Jacob glanced at Sam, who stared down to his feet. He couldn't argue with his alpha, and he was right. Jacob didn't need to be brought into unnecessary danger. "Fine," he mumbled. Hunter put his thumb under his chin and lifted his head. "Are you worried about me?" he asked and cocked his head to the side. His mate slowly nodded and chewed his bottom lip. "Don't worry. They'll let you know what's happening. We'll be fine. The rival pack don't know who they're messing with." Jacob then stood back. I'll see you later." Hunter smiled and turned with Sam behind him. Jacob watched them run through the car park and towards the approaching trees. Being involved with this would probably slow the wolf. Hunter and Sam watched through the trees. The rival pack were still sitting on his steps, and he felt very, very angry. His pack members were confronting them and they said nothing. They were ignoring them. "That's enough. I need to settle this." Hunter sighed and started walking. Sam quickly followed him through the trees and across the field. Vic stood up when he saw him. He had a smirk on his face, and Hunter wanted to punch it off immediately. When he wasn't talking, he stopped and crossed his arms. "What do you think you're doing?" he growled. His pack stood behind him and glared at the intruders. "Well," Vic grinned, "we're getting our revenge." "For what? You have your tragic princess prancing around in our territory, hurting my mate, and you think you are the ones who need revenge." Hunter was mad, yes. "You see, we're sick of you feeling like you can do what you want just because your dad is important." Hunter rolled his eyes and uncrossed his arms. "We entered into your territory. I said sorry. It was an accident, so why are you not accepting it?" "Because it's fun seeing you angry." "Is that a joke? You think this is fun?" Hunter roared. "You need to grow up, Vic. And you need to be more careful leaving your vulnerable mate to walk home by himself." Hunter stared him dead in the eyes. "Jacob, are you okay?" he thought. "I'm fine. Why? Are you on your way home? Are you alone?" "Yes, with." All of a sudden, Hunter could no longer hear his voice. For the first time in a week, the only voice in his head was his own. Vic started to feel a little intimidated by Hunter's aggressive stare. "What have you done?" he said lowly. His pack glanced at him with sudden worry. "Well, since you didn't bring him to the party, we're bringing him for you." Hunter could feel Jacob's emotions, and he was freaking out big time. He took a step closer and clenched his fist. "You've just made the biggest mistake of your life." Sam has never heard him speak with so much anger. His mate was very special to him, and nobody is allowed to cause him harm or worry. "Is that so?" Because Hunter took a big step forwards and punched him straight in the jaw. Vic fell back against the steps as Hunter's rage built inside of him. "If you've hurt even a hair on his head, I'm going to make your life hell," he roared. "You know, Hunter," Vic said and rubbed his jaw. He didn't stand up in fear of getting hit again. "I was surprised that you're gay, but I guess it means it'll be easier to fight you." Hunter and his pack frowned with confusion. "You're such an idiot," Ricky muttered. "That makes literally no sense." Hunter sighed. "Why would it? You know what? You know what? I don't even care. It makes you look weak." Vic's patent glared at Ricky. "Especially with a mate like yours." Hunter stepped forwards and grabbed the scruff of his t-shirt. Vic's pack tensed. They didn't know what to do. Hunter Raisin is powerful and dangerous to go up against. If you speak about him one more time, you can say goodbye to using your legs. He growled in his face. "I assume it's the rest of your pack that is with him. Order them to let him go." Hunter wasn't sure why he couldn't hear his thoughts. However, there's a certain spot at the back of the head that can temporarily cut off the mind link if it is hit hard enough. The mind link will return when it heals. There's no point. They're pretty much you anyway. Everyone quickly turned when they heard heavy paws on the ground. They could smell to other wolves, and Hunter could detect Jacob's scent too. He watched with anger bubbling in his veins. A black wolf then appeared from the trees and sprinted across the field. Hunter's eyes immediately saw Jake, up on its back with someone behind him, holding him on. Sam gasped when he noticed that Jacob was limp and not quite himself. Hunter realized that they had, in fact, injured him. His head turned slowly to face Vic. He had lost all self-control. He instantly jumped on him and head-butted him hard. Vic cried in pain as Sam and Jonah ran in the direction of Jacob, who had been thrown off the back of the wolf while the packs began to fight. A woman stood over him. She had short blonde hair, black jeans, and a dark green fitted t-shirt. She lightly kicked Jacob with one of her boots, making him land on his back. The big black wolf changed into another woman, Alisha. She didn't care that she was topless, but she didn't spot Sam running up behind her. He grabbed her by the neck and slammed her into the ground. Her face hit the floor and her nose instantly started to bleed and throb. But he didn't stop. He continued his journey to Jacob as Jonah started to fight the other woman. Hunter kicked Vic into the wooden steps with so much force that he broke them and fell through. He was just about to kick him again when a member of the rival pack tackled him to the floor. As Jonah fought with the werewolf, Sam knelt in front of Jacob. He was conscious but clearly concussed. He was holding the back of his head and staring at the clouds. Jacob. Sam questioned and helped him to sit up, but he fell forwards, not able to hold his own weight. "All right. Take it easy. Can you hear me?" Sam supported him, yet Jacob didn't respond to his voice. He moved his head so he was facing him. His eyes were half closed and he looked like he had no idea where he was or who he was with. "Jacob, can you hear me?" He repeated softly and still. Jacob didn't respond to it at all. "Hunter," Sam thought and turned to see if he was okay. His alpha was on top of Vic and punching him repeatedly in the face. Jacob needs serious medical attention. He watched his alpha stop and glance his way. Vic looked almost as bad as Jacob, but Hunter was through with him. Alisha managed to peel her body off the floor and started making her way towards the chaos. She needed to protect Vic. "What are his injuries?" Hunter thought back and stomped on Vic's chest, making him cry in pain. "I'm not entirely sure. He has a nasty head injury. The back of his head is bleeding quite badly." Hunter stood up. He was going over to Jacob. He couldn't keep fighting when he was in such a state. As he climbed over Vic, he was faced with Alisha, who lifted her fist. Hunter rolled his eyes and smacked her in the face, sending her flying to the ground. He didn't have time for her petty fight. Jacob had started to pull on the grass. He wasn't sure if he was trying to steady himself or not when his alpha arrived. "Jacob," he questioned and cupped his face in his hands. Jacob's gaze lifted and his hands rested on Hunter's legs. He was responding to him. My head," he whispered. He was so confused. He couldn't remember what happened to him, and he couldn't focus for long enough to understand the situation. "Let me see." Hunter turned his head and got a glimpse of the gash that was heavily bleeding. "Sam, get in touch with my parents. Tell them the situation and—" "I don't think I need to." Sam interrupted and pointed to the side of the house. Hunter rested Jacob's head on his chest for support and turned. He breathed a sigh of relief when he spotted two white wolves and the rest of his parents' pack running towards the chaos. Jacob closed his eyes and focused on Hunter's familiar smell. Hunter still couldn't connect with his mate's mind link, so he connected with his mother. "Mom, get here quick. They injured Jacob." He watched his mom turn and sprint over to them. He took off his t-shirt so she could cover up. When she reached them, she changed and quickly put her son's top on, which drowned her. "What happened?" she asked, and delicately lifted Jacob's head so she could examine his injuries. "He was walking home from college. I don't know what they did to him. Is he going to be okay?" Margot looked up to her son. He looked extremely worried. "He needs at least 2 days rest. Being paired with you will heal his injuries faster. Hopefully. But this wound needs stitched up. Help me get him into the house." Nobody questioned Margot's judgment. They knew she was always correct. Hunter didn't know what he was going to tell Jacob's family, but he'll think about it when the time comes. For now, he needed to get him into a safer environment. His dad and his pack had changed and were ripping the rival pack to shreds with their words. Nobody dared to fight a pack of such importance. 𝐴nthony was angry and he would take immediate action. If he had the power to break this pack up and leave Vic as a lonely alpha, he would do it. He then watched as his son ran past with his mate in his arms. He saw the blood dripping down Hunter's arm from the back of Jacob's head. When his son, Sam and Margot had entered the house, his eyes grew extremely cold. Which one of you hurt Jacob? The rival pack glanced at each other until the woman with short blonde hair pushed Alisha forwards but also stepped forwards herself. Lying to this pack would probably be the last thing she ever did. She's just a human. How shallow do you have to be to go after the weakest? He can't defend himself against werewolves, and yet you hurt him to this extent. He put up a fight. 𝐴nthony crossed his arms. He was sick and tired of this. Puck, he said boldly. Escort these pathetic pups back to their territory. He then turned and climbed up the side of his broken steps and into his home. He was fed up and he was ready to destroy that pack with everything he had. And he will, without a second of hesitation. Chapter 35. Hunter, please give me some space. You're blocking the light. Margot spoke softly and looked at Jacob's deep wound. He's going to need a lot of stitches. Jacob was lying belly down on the couch. Sam had placed a sick bucket on the floor and Kay threw up. He was staring at the wall, still confused and feeling the pain of his injury. Hunter took a step back. He was very worried about him. He seemed really concussed. Jacob. Margot tapped gently on his cheek. Do you know where you are? His eyes closed for a brief moment before opening and glancing at Margot. Hunter, he whispered quietly. I'm right here. Hunter crouched next to his mom and gave him a kind smile. See. Jacob's arm fell off the couch in an attempt to touch him. He wasn't sure why he felt so compelled to feel his warmth. Hunter lifted his arm and placed it on his lap. He held tightly onto his mate's hand, only realizing how weak he was due to his poor effort to squeeze it back. Do you know what happened to you? Hunter asked and crossed his legs. He ran a very gentle hand through the front of Jacob's hair, who stared at him with no emotion. Werewolves, he mumbled. They are real. Margot started to prepare things so she could disinfect the wound while 𝐴nthony and the rest of Hunter's pack stood next to the couch and watched with They are. Hunter lifted his hand and gently kissed his knuckles. He hated seeing him like this as his mom returned her attention to his cut. What? That's odd. Margot mumbled and looked closer at his head. What is it? 𝐴nthony questioned. It's healing. The wound. Hunter frowned. Already. Margot nodded with concern. Is it because 𝐻ES connected to a werewolf? This is different. It has healed so much in less than 30 seconds that I don't need to stitch it up anymore. Hunter leaned over him and looked. She was right. The blood was no longer gushing out of it. It was no longer gaping open. I still have the bruising from my ribs. There's no way 𝐻ED heal faster than a werewolf. Hunter's pack glanced at one another, not really sure what to make of this situation and what it would then mean. Unless. 𝐴nthony trailed off and looked at his wife, who heard his thoughts. He felt stupid thinking it in his head. 𝐻ES not just a human. Margot spoke for him. Hunter scoffed and stood up. Are you kidding? 𝐻ES clearly human. Son, this isn't normal. Even in a werewolf-esque world. Margot looked at his wound and it was still making progress. Jacob was frowning and the color was returning to his cheeks, but he still looked a little confused. What else could he be? Hunter shook his head. Only werewolves and humans exist. He is obviously just a human. 𝐴nthony tapped his chin with thought, but was it really that obvious? Hunter could not believe that his parents suggested something so ridiculous as he knelt in front of his mate. Jacob, can you hear me? His mate looked up with weary eyes. Yes, he whispered. Do you know where you are? In your house. Hunter nodded. He had improved in such a short space of time. Do you remember what happened to you? Jacob took a slow but big breath of air like he was trying to reboot his mind. Alisha, he mumbled. Hit me. Margot continued to watch his wound put itself back together. She was mesmerized. Don't worry. My dad will sort out her and the rest of Vic's stack. Hunter's eyes flickered up to his dad, who was staring at him. He didn't like it when he had that look on his face. It was one of uncertainty and perplexity. Jacob, do you think you're able to sit up for me? Margot questioned. Hunter helped his mate sit upright. He was a little wobbly but a lot better than earlier. He didn't look like he had been severely injured only minutes ago. Margot wiped away some dry blood on the back of his neck as the wound formed a nice thick scar. Do you have a headache or anything? Anthony asked. The outside may be healing, but that doesn't mean the inside was. Jacob slowly shook his head. I think I feel okay, he mumbled. Everything was happening so fast that he barely had a second to understand. Anthony walked around the couch and sat on the table in front of him. He looked him in the eye and crossed his arms. What are you? His voice was a little stern. Dad, Hunter frowned. Margot sat next to her husband and looked at the human. Jacob, it isn't normal for you to heal at this speed, even if you are connected to a werewolf. Jacob's eyes moved between them and then to Hunter, who got up and sat next to him. It's not. You know it's not. Anthony narrowed his eyes. You can't be a normal human. It's not possible to heal that way. I am normal. Jacob started to panic. He was also afraid of what happened. He had been injured badly and now he was recovered in a matter of minutes. He wanted answers too. Don't work yourself up. Hunter soothed and gently put an arm around him. Dad, can you stop? He has been through a lot today. Anthony sighed. I'm sorry, Jacob. I don't mean to be so demanding. I just don't like it when I don't have an explanation for something like this. Jacob fiddled with his fingers and chewed on his bottom lip while Margot studied him with her magical gift. However, there was nothing abnormal about him. His aura matched her son's, which is normal for mates. His soul was human and shared quantities of her son's, which was also normal. But there was something niggling in the back of her mind. Something that wasn't quite right. But what was it? Hunter then stood up and pulled Jacob up too. Come on. Let's get you cleaned up. He had dry blood in his hair and on his clothes. When his mate turned, Hunter could see that the only evidence left of his injury was a very small scar. It wouldn't be very noticeable if nobody knew it was there. Anthony, Margot, and Hunter's pack watched them leave and enter the werewolf's bedroom. Sam uncrossed his arms. Did that really just happen? Jacob's superhuman or something? He chuckled, but nobody found this situation funny. Lighten up, boys. 𝐻ES healed. Isn't that the main thing here? He had a point. Jacob was no longer injured and in danger of receiving damage to his brain or spinal cord. The pack nodded and the atmosphere grew brighter. Right then, Sam was the leader when Hunter had other priorities, but that's his job as the beta wolf. I do believe we have some stairs to fix. 𝐶AC groaned, but Sam grabbed his shoulder and pushed him towards the door. When Jacob was finished pulling one of Hunter's shirts over his head, Hunter turned and threw a hoodie at him too. Why do I feel like there's going to be a drawer at your house full of my clothes? He grinned. Jacob's cheeks flushed pink before putting the hoodie on. He then sat on the edge of the bed and ran his fingers over the little scar at the back of his head. Don't worry about that for now. It is strange and unexplainable, but all I care about is your health. You're better, and that's all that matters to me. Hunter sat next to him with a loving smile. But your parents don't think him normal now. Don't let that get to your head. They just want to know how you did it. If even you don't know, then maybe it was something else that healed you. Maybe I'm the weird one here. Hunter chuckled. That did make Jacob feel a little better. At least you don't have to explain this to my parents. He mumbled. That is very true. Your mom would have split us up for sure. Well, tried. Jacob breasted into him a little more. He was still shaken up about what happened. Why can my family not know about who you really are? Because our society is secret and it needs to remain that way. We can't have the authorities on our backs. It would cause a war between us and it can't happen again. Again. Yeah. It happened almost 300 years ago. I'm so glad they didn't have the technology back then to capture proof. Jacob nodded, showing he understood. Just when he was about to ask something else, Hunter's thoughts invaded his head once more, causing him to jump. Hunter chuckled. Their mind link was back. I didn't realize how boring my own thoughts were until yours were gone. He grinned. You do think about weird stuff, you know. Jacob moved up the bed and rested his back against the wall. He was feeling a little tired. I'm a curious person. He shrugged. You are indeed. Hunter moved and sat next to him once more. He knew he was constantly invading his space, but he also knew that he didn't mind. Just then, Jacob's phone vibrated against his and Hunter's leg. Jacob jumped again and quickly pulled it out. Hunter watched him with a growing smile. He was so timid. He studied his face while he read a text until his eyes washed over with a dull shine. What's up? That was my mum. He sighed. Just telling me to go home because my grandparents are visiting later and she wants me and Will to tidy. Are these the grandparents who think you're only useful for daydreaming? Hunter remembered him thinking about it. Jacob nodded. I am a bit of an airhead, but they're mean about it. Are they your mother's parents by any chance? Hunter questioned, making Jacob nod. I also like that about you. You're not afraid to think about anything and everything. My favorite thing to do is listen to your thoughts when you zone out. Jacob always hated that about himself, but Hunter was slowly changing his mind. Just then, he received another text. Is it from your mom again? Jacob nodded. She wants you to meet them. Hunter raised his eyebrows. They haven't been dating long in the human world, but it looked like Grace is making an extra effort to accept him. Wait, if she wants them to meet me, do you think she wants them to meet Alisha? Fear flashed through Jacob, making Hunter smoothly put his arm around his shoulders. Jacob really liked his comfort and accepted it rather easily. I won't be able to keep back my anger if I see her. I've had enough of her games. Although I did give her a black eye and I'm pretty sure Sam broke her nose. Surely she won't turn up looking like that. Hunter wondered out loud. Let's hope not. She would have some real guts to turn up after what just happened. I would actually love to see the look on her face when she realizes you're healed. The stupid mutt can't hurt you and it'll really irritate her. Jacob nodded, but he needed to know why that happened to him. Why was he different? What gave him the ability to do that? Something about himself was now a mystery. How would he find answers when even the werewolves didn't know? Chapter 36. Are you sure you can't see it? Jacob asked while they stood outside his front door. They had walked from Hunter's house, which took them just under 2 hours. I'm sure. There's only a tiny scar, but it's really not noticeable. Hunter reassured him before he opened the door and entered his home. Jacob could hear his brother talking to someone, and he really prayed that it was Alisha. He took off his shoes and placed them neatly out of the way. Hunter was starting to find that cute and he wasn't really sure why. They both then held their breath and entered the living room. Hunter quickly released it to see William on his phone, but it dawned on him that he'd able to smell Alisha if she was here. Although which, his mate's scent is so strong to him that it easily dominates any other smell. William took the phone from his ear and whispered for Jacob to do the dishes after waving at them. It was still unusual for him to be spending more time with one of his friends than him. Obviously, Jacob was more important to Hunter and he didn't mind that at all. He was very happy for his brother. Hunter turned and followed him to the kitchen. I can dry them and put them away. You don't know where anything goes, though, Jacob said quietly. Hunter stopped and flashed him a big grin. That is a very good point. I'll wash them. Jacob started putting things away as Hunter filled the sink with hot water. Just then, the front door opened and they both stopped for a moment. Oh hey boys. Scott beamed and hung his coat over the back of the door. He examined his son, who was in another one of Hunter's hoodies. How was college today? Okay. Jacob mumbled and dried a plate. Scott looked at Hunter, also expecting him to answer. Oh yeah, it was okay too. He smiled. How was work? Boring. Hunter chuckled and Jacob smiled, making the werewolf double take which Scott saw. He then walked over to make a coffee as the boys continued with their job. When he sat down at the table, he observed his son and his boyfriend. He wanted to get to know their relationship better, and the only way he could do that was watching them in their natural state. "You know," Hunter said and handed him a pan. "We haven't done very much on this project. We have 3 weeks. It's fine," Jacob said quietly. "True. And you wanted to know more about the theories which I can help with." He smiled. Jacob nodded. "Thank you. You're welcome. I'm just finding excuses to spend time with you." Scott smiled but quickly went back to pretending like he wasn't paying attention or listening. "You don't need excuses." Hunter passed him a glass with a twinkle in his eyes. However, Jacob's faint look of disapproval didn't allow it to last very long. "You didn't wash that properly." He mumbled and handed it back. "That's because you're distracting me. It's not hard to wash dishes." Jacob was suppressing a little smile. Hunter turned with a devilish grin. "What was that?" He flicked some water, making Jacob flinch. "Don't do that." He winced, but of course. Hunter did it again. "Is it too gross for you?" Hunter lifted a wet hand and quickly placed it on his chest. Oh wait. That's my hoodie." Jacob actually laughed, causing Hunter's heart to skip a beat. Scott also looked up. That sound was very rare. Jacob tried to push Hunter's hand away, but he held onto his hoodie and pulled him into him. "You have a great laugh." He beamed and kissed his cheek. Jacob knew he was blushing because his dad was really bad at pretending to mind his own business. Hunter then lightly pinched his cheek, obviously trying to embarrass him in front of his parent. "So cute." Jacob pulled back with a shy look in his eye. "Are you nervous about showing affection in front of your family?" Hunter thought yes. "I can tone down if you would like me to." "No, it's okay. There's no point hiding it. I have to get used to it anyway." They glanced at each other with the same emotion. Hunter loved how he had truly accepted it and was willing to evolve their relationship. Well, we did kiss in front of our seminar class today. I'm happy you didn't freak out. Hiding things can get tiring." Jacob watched him in between drying things. "I'm getting used to kissing you now." Hunter smiled to himself. "I'm really glad." When the washing was done and put away, Jacob turned to his dad. Is there anything else that needs to be done?" he questioned quietly. "No, it's fine. You know your mother. She just freaks out about stuff." Scott smiled. His son nodded and asked if Hunter would like anything to drink. When he politely declined, they wandered out of the kitchen and towards the bedroom. Almost an hour went till Grace walked in with her parents behind her. She didn't know if she was excited or not for them to meet Hunter. They didn't know her son was gay, and she didn't know what their thoughts were with that kind of stuff. They greeted Scott and William with happy smiles and warm hugs. "Where's this girl of yours then?" William's grandfather asked and nudged his shoulder. "She couldn't make it," he replied. "But hopefully you'll get to meet her next time." William had been talking to her on the phone when his brother entered. She didn't really give him a reason for her not coming. Just then, Jacob entered the living room with Hunter, who looked a little nervous. However, he hid it well. "Oh, there he is." Jacob's grandmother pulled him into a loose hug. "Where have you been hiding?" "In your room as usual," his grandfather said and gave his shoulder a pat. Knowing he wasn't fond of hugging, Jacob nodded and started to fidget when his grandmother looked at Hunter. "Who's this?" she questioned, looking him up and down. Well, Grace's heart thumped against her ribs. She wasn't really sure how to word it. Jacob saw her hesitation and didn't know if she was ashamed or just nervous. Hunter watched her open her mouth and close it again. It would soon get very awkward, so he put an arm around his mate and expressed enough confidence for the both of them. "I'm Hunter, Jacob's boyfriend." Jacob felt his pride, but he also acknowledged the horrible silence and the growing judgment on his faces. He knows they prefer William because they can actually hold a conversation with his brother. "Sorry, boyfriend," his grandfather repeated. He had an odd look on his expression while Jacob's senses continued to feel fuzzy. Hearing Hunter saying that about him felt really good. Yes, Grace finally found her voice. Jacob's boyfriend. This time, Jacob heard her confidence. When did this happen? Her mother glanced at Jacob and she really didn't look pleased. And why did this happen? What do you mean why? Scott chuckled with a funny frown. Why are you letting him have a relationship with another boy? Because 𝐊𝐲𝐬𝐷 gay. Scott crossed his arms. 𝐊𝐲 attracted to other men. That's why. You're letting your son be attracted to other men, why? Jacob felt Hunter's arm lock tighter around him. Mum, Grace frowned. He can be attracted to whatever gender he likes. Well, 𝐊𝐲's not my kid. Her dad sighed. I always had a feeling he was a weird one. Hunter glanced at Jacob to see that the light in his eyes had dimmed. He had prepared himself for this. He knew they might be difficult. Would now be a good time to ask for a kiss. Jacob's jaw clenched slightly. He understood that it was better to be confident in this situation. It was just a little difficult, although what did he have to lose? His grandparents didn't really like him anyway. Now is a perfect time. He's a bit weird. Hunter smiled and cupped his chin. But that's just the way I like him. Jacob's cheeks instantly flushed pink when he brought his face close and delicately kissed him on the lips. He kissed back and closed his eyes. He tried to forget about the fact that everyone was watching and his grandparents probably now hate him a little more. However, he needed a kiss, and Hunter always made him feel a little more relaxed. And he was fed up of people thinking that they know what's best for him. William didn't think that seeing his brother kiss Hunter would look as natural as it did. Scott and surprisingly Grace tried to hide their smiles. When their mouths parted, they stayed close and glanced at his grandparents. Well, as long as you're happy, his grandmother muttered. Even if it isn't natural. His granddad sighed and walked past. Grace, can you put the kettle on? I need a cup of tea. Grace shook her head with disapproval. I'm sorry, Jacob. I didn't think. It's fine. He mumbled. I don't really care. She squeezed his shoulder and followed her mother through to the kitchen. I hate when they visit. Scott mumbled and followed her, earning a chuckle from William. At least you're not their favorite child, he said to his brother and flopped down onto the couch. I have to pretend like I'm interested in what they're saying all the time. Hunter and Jacob sat down too, feeling glad that the tension was over. How long are they staying for? Jacob asked and dug his hands into his hoodie pockets. I don't know. A few days, I think. William shrugged. Jacob allowed his head to fall against the back of the couch. That did not put him in a good mood at all. Hunter watched him, knowing he didn't like the sound of that. Maybe if I asked your parents, you could stay with me for a day or two, Hunter suggested. I mean, there's a huge chance they'll say no, but it's worth a try. Please, for the love of God, bring me with you. William chuckled and pretended to beg. But seriously, that's not a bad idea. Would your parents be okay with it, Hunter? Yeah, they don't care who stays over. So I can come. No, Jacob released a little smile. He would really like to sleep somewhere other than under the same roof as his grandparents. Oh, come on. No, Hunter grinned. You can stay at Sam's. William crossed his arms. I barely know Sam. 𝐻's good company when 𝐻's not bouncing off the walls. Good to know. William chuckled. Will. They then heard Grace yell from the kitchen. Can you nip to the shop for me? He sighed and stood up. Fine. He yelled back and walked out of the room. The silence was bearable this time until Jacob's mind drifted to earlier when he managed to heal in such a ridiculous amount of time. What was wrong with him? There's nothing wrong, Hunter said quietly. Things like this have reasons for happening. I'm sure we'll find out when the time is right. What if more weird stuff happens to me? Then we'll cope with it. You healed a serious head injury within minutes. I'd like to know it's stranger than that. Hunter gave him a warm smile. He didn't want him constantly freaking out about it. But if he can stay over at his then, he can keep him preoccupied. And if anything else does happen, 𝐻's in safe hands. Chapter 37. Please, Mum. Jacob pleaded and gave her his best puppy dog eyes, which Hunter totally fell for. He knew that if Jacob ever did that to him, then 𝐻'd have to say yes. No matter what. Absolutely not. You can't just go for a few days while your grandparents visit. And also, I don't want you staying at Hunter's house. You're only 17, so. Jacob crossed his arms. They don't want me here. Of course they do. They don't. He sighed quietly. You just choose not to see it because they are your parents. Grace. Scott rested his hands on his wife's shoulders. All they have done for the past hour is talk about William. Every time we mention Jacob's name, they frown and change the subject. I think he should stay with Hunter until they leave. I'm more than sure he'll have a better time there. I don't want you boys taking your relationship further. Don't worry about that. Hunter quickly added before Jacob's mind melted with awkwardness. Jacob's not ready for that. He has only just started getting used to kissing me. Shut up. Jacob's voice echoed in his head, making him shut his mouth. He could feel his deep embarrassment. Are you saying that you're ready for it? Grace attacked him with a frown. No, I have you had say yes. Now it was Hunter's turn to blush. He could also feel Jacob's eyes on him. His emotions and expression didn't change. He kind of knew because Hunter was a lot more experienced than him and he seemed to know what he was doing. With a guy? No, with a girl. With a girl, Hunter did feel a little awkward. He was saying this to his mate's parents. But you're I know. I'm gay. Hunter glanced at Jacob, who was intensely chewing on his bottom lip and slowly wringing his hands. I guess that experience made me realize it. Not all of that was a lie. Hunter's first time was the best and he wished he waited until he had his mate. But he was drunk and it was a silly mistake. How do I know that you're not going to try anything with our son? Grace was firm and starting to annoy Hunter. Because I'm not like that. He frowned. I would never even think about putting him in that kind of situation. Mom, you're being a bit unfair. Jacob spoke quietly. It's my choice with what I do in this relationship. I'm not ready to take it further, but so what if I was? It's my body, not yours. Grace didn't really have anything to say after that. Her son was right. It is his choice and she doesn't really have the power to stop him. Hunter was enjoying Jacob's bold attitude. So can I stay at his? He asked quietly, returning back to his shy state. Grace and Scott looked at each other, deciding on the answer. Fine. She sighed with a slight eye roll. But if I call, you better answer your phone. And don't even think about skipping college. Jacob's eyes lit up like a Christmas tree. Thank you. He beamed. Hunter has never seen him smile with a lot of happiness before, and it was only then that he could feel his excitement about sleeping over. I can drop you off if you like. Scott suggested and checked his watch. It was 7:30 in the evening. If that's okay, Hunter asked. Sure, it's not a problem. Just make sure Jacob packs everything. You know what HE's like. I will. He chuckled before they turned and left the bedroom. William was downstairs and trapped in a conversation with his grandparents. Hunter then collapsed onto his mate's bed and let out a big sigh of relief. That was such an awkward conversation. Jacob nodded and started shoving things into a bag. My mom is so overprotective. I know. Hunter sat up and watched him. But that's my job. Jacob stopped and stared at him. Is it? He questioned with a strong twinkle in his eye. Hunter tilted his head with a dashing smile. Are you flirting back at me, Jacob Jones? His stare was always intense, but it sent shivers down his mate's spine when he looked at him like that. I Jacob's face started to heat up. He was feeling confident, but not that confident. I don't know how to flirt. Hunter collapsed his back against his bed again and rested a hand on his chest. My heart can't take it. He chuckled. You're just so innocent. I love it. When Scott pulled up outside Hunter's home, he had a good look around. He was surprised that it was in the middle of nowhere and at the bottom of a huge field, leading onto a big forest. The home itself was cute and reminded him of a little log cabin. However, it was bigger to accommodate 3 people. Do you mind if I come in for a minute or two so I can check with your parents that this is okay? He asked and turned to the boys who were unbuckling their seatbelts. That's fine. They do love to say hi. Hunter smiled and climbed out after Jacob. The cool breeze hit him and all he wanted to do was run for hours and hours. He hasn't done that for a good few days and he really needed a moment to escape and be in his wolf form for a while. "You can go for a run when my dad leaves," Jacob spoke in his head. "I don't mind. I can do some college work in your room. You'll think about it." Hunter would still rather spend time with his mate. When they entered the house, he looked up to see his mum resting against his dad, but this caused him to freeze. His dad was in his wolf form. Jacob stopped too with instant worry. He watched his dad's face when he entered and saw the great white wolf sprawled on the floor in front of the fireplace. His eyebrows raised and his mouth hung slightly open. However, he hasn't seen any wolves in person before and just thought it was a very, very large dog. "That is the biggest dog I have ever seen." Margot stood up before whispering for her husband to stay there. If he stood up, his size would really look unnatural. "𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐩𝐭𝐢𝐨𝐬 was a witch. 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬. My son didn't tell me you were coming over." Margot glanced at Hunter with eyes that leaked, "Are you an idiot?" She walked over with a big smile, trying to distract him. "That's not our dog. We're looking after a few nights for a friend." "Yeah, I didn't recall you mentioning having any pets." �K𝐞𝐬 didn't take his eyes off it. "But what am I here for?" Oh right. I was just checking if it's definitely okay for Jacob to stay for a night or two." I'm not sure if Hunter has explained this or not, but his grandparents are visiting and they are quite homophobic. Margot looked at him with sympathy in her eyes. "Oh, you poor thing. It's completely fine for him to stay here for as long as he wants." She beamed. Scott returned the smile, but his eyes kept wandering to the huge dog laying on the rug. It was unnaturally large into him. It was beginning to look more like a wolf. Also, where was Anthony? "Thank you, Margot, Margot," he said before giving his son's shoulder a squeeze. "If you need anything, just drop me a text, okay?" Jacob nodded. He then stepped forwards and hugged him. Scott was surprised, but he didn't hesitate to hug back. "Thank you," he whispered in his dad's ear, "for being so supportive." Scott hugged him a little tighter. I love you. I'll always be here for you. I love you too." Scott pulled back and examined his face with a proud smile. "Right, I should get going. See you in a few days." He then turned and walked out of their home. He didn't think that he would be letting Jacob stay at his boyfriend's house this time a few months ago. He was in a really bad place with no friends and only family to fall back on. Now everything was changing for him and guiding him in the right direction. But when he was gone, Margot marched over to her son and smacked him on the back of the head as 𝐿𝐻𝐻𝐻 changed into his human form. "Why didn't you warn us he was coming?" she hissed. Hunter frowned and crossed his arms. "I didn't think 𝐿𝐻𝐻𝐻 come in." "You know now for next time, son," Anthony sighed. "Jacob, if he starts to mention anything about wolves, please let us know." I will." He spoke quietly. "Good." Anthony pulled on a T-shirt but studied Jacob for a little longer. He and his wife had been discussing what happened today. They had no idea who Jacob really was and it irritated him. "Also, Hunter, you'll be glad to know that the rival pack are no longer a pack. We set a law down that each individual member can never be in a pack with each other again. They have to find new people." Hunter's whole body seemed to relax. "Thanks, Dad, I'm so glad. If I ever see any of them again." He muttered while Margot rubbed his shoulders and asked if he would like a drink. Hunter then took hold of Jacob's hand, but quickly pulled it back with a frown. "Oh, you gave me an electric shock." He chuckled. "Oh, sorry." Jacob rubbed his fingers, but there was a faint static, like noise building up in his head. It was the terrible ringing of silence, and he was sure why it was there. "Let's try that again." Hunter grinned and took his hand. This time, the electric shock was much stronger and caused a spark to ignite when Hunter quickly jumped back. His parents had seen that and grew very concerned. Hunter, Jacob whispered with worry. The high-pitched noise was growing, strong and stronger in Jacob's head. He was starting to feel the energy of everything around him. Margot then saw it. That strange feeling that had been niggling in the back of her mind about Jacob. showed itself. His aura flickered at the edge, which was something very unusual. Hunter's was like a bubble, which is how every Onus aura should be. It looks calm and surrounds the body, but Jacob's was sparking out like a surge of electricity, and it was normal. Hunter watched him with deep eyes and lifted his hand out one last time. "Let's see if that happens again." "It was weird," he said with a hearty smile, trying to keep his mate from freaking out. Jacob felt very strange, but his intrigued mind allowed him to lift his hand too. When their fingertips connected, a huge lightning bolt surged out from Jacob's hand and straight up Hunter's arms, causing him to fly backwards and into the table. His parents gasped and ran over to help him. "I'm fine." Hunter coughed and slowly climbed to his feet when Jacob's hands began to shake. "I am so sorry," Jacob spoke with a wavering voice and guilty eyes. Everyone looked at him with wonder and worry, not knowing what just occurred. Something is happening to him. Margot watched his aura grow stronger and more aggressive. It was flickering violently and growing deeper with color. Suddenly, the static noise in Jacob's head overtook everything else. It was like someone just turned the volume up to its maximum. He covered his ears and collapsed to the ground in pain. Hunter quickly ran over, but he didn't want to touch him out of fear of getting electrocuted again. Jacob cried out. It felt like his head was going to explode. Hunter turned back to his parents with panic. "What do we do? 𝐻's hurting so much." "I don't know it. Anthony has never heard of anything happening like this before. I don't understand." Jacob curled up into a ball when his bones started to ache. He was not only mentally changing, he was physically changing too. Hunter could see the slight growth in his muscles as the hoodie he was wearing started fitting him better. His jeans grew tighter and slightly too short. Jacob's body shook with pure energy. He couldn't stand it. Hunter shuffled back. There was no explanation for this, and it looked very strange through his eyes. Jacob felt different. He was beginning to feel stronger and much more powerful as the static ringing his head slowly deteriorated. Margot watched his aura settle down and his body stop shaking. Jacob took deep breaths before slowly lifting his head. Hunter hesitated but gradually touched him. He stopped tensing when there was no weird spark of electricity. His eyes examined his mate with astonishment. He looked bigger. He was now maybe slightly more muscular than him, and it was very noticeable. Hunter climbed to his feet and helped him up too. The surprise stayed in his eyes when Jacob was now the same height as him. It was only maybe 3 or 4 inches higher than his previous height, but that was noticeable too. Margot and Anthony were stuck to the spot. They didn't have the ability to move or speak. They were just as shocked. Hunter took Jacob's hands once more and looked him in the eyes. He examined his muscular arms, chest and body. He wanted so badly to know what he looked like under those clothes. "Well, I guess. This will be hard to hide from your family.